Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. I know there are many, many podcasts you could choose from, so that you choose us is not a small thing. Thank you. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks, as always, for your written reviews at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I want to tell you about my friend in Cincinnati named John Ruhlman. Now, he runs a company called U.S. Medical Plan. And John has been a sponsor of mine and a friend of mine for a long while. And he has gotten calls from this audience, including calls from my own family, calls from colleagues and friends of mine who have shopped with him their current health insurance plan. And he has saved friends and family thousands of dollars, literally. Let me give you for example. I have a friend who bought private health insurance for his family. His daughter had some special health needs that cost him quite a bit of money a month to get premiums covered for all of them. John found him identical coverage and saved him $2,000 a month. That's jaw-dropping money. My parents called John for a supplemental health insurance plan for their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. Now, every nickel is precious, particularly when you're sitting on an income that you've got to count on for the rest of your days and you're counting your change. $400 is a lot of money. All right, so that's what John can do for you. Or maybe if you have no health insurance at all and you think it's too expensive, I can't afford it right now. He has over 100 different private health insurance companies all over the country that he shops and compares so that he gets you the best rates and never cheats you on coverage, by the way. It doesn't mean it's some scant coverage. Great rates, great coverage. Let John and his team at usmedicalplan.com go to work for you today. You can also call 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321, usmedicalplan.com. Well, glad to have you along, folks. Middle of the week. Hope you're doing well out there. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL. If you want to get in today, and you're also online, if you want to find us online, that's the easiest way to do that, is find us at, what's going on there this morning, fellas? You guys are talking. What's going on? Did I miss something there? Everything okay? Smash steady? Doing well?
I think Mike's
Test,
open.
check this thing on. Okay,
You
good.
got it.
Heard a little conversation there. Wasn't sure. I thought I'd missed something. All right. Well, here we are. It's the middle of the week. It feels like it's been about 10 of them. Yesterday alone, I did something that I really regret. I spent a good deal of yesterday in the sewer of X. I'm not sure why, but I felt inclined to do it, and I did it, and I regret it. I'm still washing the stench off my body. You can follow along on social media if you'd like. Go to chrisstigall.com. You can follow along on X on all the social media platforms. I'm even, every now and again, I wade into TikTok, despite my better judgment. But yes, yesterday I spent some time on X getting into I guess what many of you feel. I don't know how many of you in this audience feel this way, and I always like to be very, very clear. And over the years, I've matured a lot about social media and X, in that I know that X is not reflective of this audience. X is its own world, what used to be known as Twitter. Rush taught us a long, long time ago that Twitter is not real life. Now, when Elon bought it and dumped most of the left-wing wackos that ran it, supposedly, and purged all of the governors on it, supposedly, although I'm still not convinced that my account, for instance, is not one that is highly and heavily governed and regulated, as well as Facebook for that matter. I think that there are still lingering vestiges of censorship that exist in these social media platforms. I don't whine about it. I don't talk to you a lot about it, but the truth be told, there was a series of years there where social media accounts like mine were growing and growing and growing, and then they just plateaued. They just stopped, and they never grew again. And in fact, you'll start to see kind of like somebody has cracked the old odometer in a car and started to roll it back. You'll see that. And that's been a pretty consistent problem now for 4 or 5 years with social media, as well as YouTube. And I mean, it's plainly obvious to me that certain accounts that espouse certain values, particularly those of faith, are not welcome. They're certainly not rewarded. Some people call it shadow banning, whatever. I'm not certain that that's not still the case with social media. I don't lose any sleep over it. I'm blessed to have hundreds and hundreds of radio stations and the Salem News Channel to talk to you every day. I don't need social media. So when I talk to you about people needing clicks and downloads and streams and views to make their living, I'm blessed in that I really don't. It is a component of this job, and it's one that, we try to keep up with, but it's not one that I lose a lot of sleep over because, as I said, you and I are here every day, and I've got the means to talk to you without all that crap. And so if it doesn't work or it's not reaching you or I am, in fact, shadow banned, fine. Also, I believe that most of the people that listen to the show, most of the people that are members of the Harumph Society, because I see it in the comments section, which is my favorite, and by the way, it's the reason I even started the Harumph Society. I started it because I knew a few years ago that this was going on with social media. I didn't particularly trust it. You don't know who people are. I think many, if not a good third or more of accounts on social media are everything from bots to foreign actors. I don't think it's real. I think it's subversive. I think there's just a lot of mess and noise going on there. I also believe that a lot of people who are frustrated hang out there and feel like this is where I can vent my frustrations and feel like I'm being heard. And they do, whether they're informed or whether they're not. And then they glom on to people who are all too happy to feed that frustration and anger. And so I spent some time yesterday doing something I almost never do, and that was addressing this Epstein file release, or lack of a release, if you will. It was addressed in more detail yesterday because President Trump had a cabinet meeting, and during that cabinet meeting, a member of the media, after the cabinet meeting had concluded and they began to take questions, a member of the media asked at the cabinet meeting of specifically Pam Bondi and President Trump, asked about the Epstein files and the lack of information, the list or whatever not being released. And, well, here's what went down, 2842. Take a listen to this.
First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Okay, the reason I wanted to lead with her and the reason I wanted to address this first is because I want those of you who are angry or upset about this to understand something about me, rather than I try to litigate this on X as I mistakenly tried to yesterday. Let me try to make this more clear about where your host stands. I'm not a fan of that woman. Fast Eddie, I don't know how much more plain I can be about it. I don't know. I haven't taken a club over her head about it. I haven't spent a ton of time belaboring it. But I think if you've been with us for any amount of time, I think you understand in my line of questioning, in the things I've written at the Harumph Society, in the questions that I brought up on this show, I think I've made it more or less plain, short of just outright attacking the woman, because I don't know her truly. I have no relationship with her. I've never interviewed her. I had no background with her. I've never talked with her one time, to my knowledge, ever. I know that President Trump chose her as Attorney General, and so my default position has been, if Trump wants her to be his Attorney General, I voted for Donald Trump. I trust Donald Trump. My default position is, if Trump thinks she's the woman for the job, he thinks she's the woman for the job. He's consistently stood by her. He's consistently said she's a star. He's consistently said that she's doing a great job. And so I say, okay, I don't find her impressive. I don't get it. I feel like there are lots of other people that could do the job better to my satisfaction. I know there are people that could communicate better than she can. We've been bragging for months about the communication style, the stardom of the people that Trump has put around him that are stars in communication. She ain't one of the shining stars, Ed. And I think I've been pretty clear about that, haven't I not? I mean, I don't think I've hidden that fact, so I want to start with her before we go anywhere else. Have I been heaping praise on Pam Bondi?
Absolutely not. No, from the first 5 Fox interviews on, no, you have not been heaping praise on Pam.
Now, does that mean that I think Pam Bondi is involved in a sinister cover-up? No.
No.
That also doesn't mean that. So, again, I understand that in 2025, in the cesspool that is social media, and now everyone has a show, and everyone thinks they're Chris Hansen at Dateline NBC, I understand. I can't keep pace with everyone's opinions. I can't keep pace with every YouTuber that has an audience. I can't keep pace with every opinion of every conspiracy and every imagined thought that people have in their head about what this story is or is not. I can't keep up with it. I don't lose sleep at night. Here's the thing, folks. I am a Christian. I believe that God is on the throne. My Lord and Savior is Jesus Christ. I pray to him and only him. I believe the ultimate justice in this world is going to come through him. I believe we're all sinners and fall short of the glory of God. I don't spend a ton of time agonizing, twisting in knots about what justice I feel isn't being done from government offices. I just don't. Do I hate it? Do I think there are a lot of sinister people that have done bad things that are not held to account and never will be? I do hate that. I hate it. I'm as frustrated by it as you. I'm sorry it's not being dealt with. I don't know how to answer for it. I'm not trying to spin it or explain it away or try to make you feel better about it or tell you shouldn't be mad about it. I never tell you how to feel about anything.
1 minute.
You can feel however you feel about Pam Bondi, about Jeffrey Epstein, about this whole thing. Feel however you want to feel. But here's what I know, and here's what everyone should remember and understand. Donald Trump won a huge mandate election. He won an improbable election. With all the world and every deck stacked against him, Donald Trump won an election to reverse course, change the course of the country, try to save the country, and there's a lot to save. There's a lot to fix, a whole lot to fix. I write about this today at the Harum Society, and he's done an amazing job in 6 months' time trying to tackle a lot of it. And I know that there are entities right now that would love nothing more than to try to drive a wedge between those of us who emphatically supported him and him. They would love to drive that wedge. And this is one of them. More in a minute. Now, I'm going to spend a little more time on this today only because I don't believe that everyone on social media is disingenuous or not full of genuine concern. I came into today's show promising I wasn't going to lose my mind like I was yesterday. I was losing my mind yesterday, and I was really glad I wasn't behind a microphone because I was really beginning to lose my mind. And I had to call some people that I trust to just allow myself to vent and say things that I can't say here for various federal reasons. But I was getting to a place with certain entities and people on social media that I was in utter disbelief. We are into a new Trump administration in just 6 months. Really. It's been 6 months. And to hear some people who have told me they're Trump supporters, who tell me they voted for Trump, who told me they walked over hot coals to vote for Trump, who went through all that we went through together as a country, who voted for Trump and supported him, to watch his home raided, to watch him dragged through at least 4 courts of law, to watch his family violated, to watch him be shot at, to weather all that, the lawfare, the lies, the slander, the scandal, And he still win the way in which he did. And then he goes to town and he goes to work immediately and he brings in people like Elon Musk and Doge and he goes to work and he's just pow, pow, pow. It's one win after another. And even despite that, the buzzsaw of judicial activism that's come at him, trying to stop him. Think of everything the man's been up against just to get to the point of being a president for a second term. And I've consistently said on this show that that is what drives me more than anything else. The fact that he, and this doesn't sit well with some people. They say, well, what, you're some sort of blind bootlicker because of that? No. Have I said that Trump is perfect? Have I said that Trump is infallible? Have I said that I agree with everything Trump does and says? I've never said that. Trump is also not ideologically driven. I know that. I'm very cautious and aware of that, which is why when Donald Trump ran the first time, and a lot of you I didn't have the privilege of getting to know, I didn't endorse Donald Trump back in 2015. I endorsed Ted Cruz at that time because I didn't trust that Donald Trump was the kind of guy ideologically that we could trust to be a rock-ribbed conservative. And I've explained many times on this show why I feel over the years I've gotten that wrong. But let me explain next why I think some people have been totally unfair and wrong about this particular news cycle. More in a minute. So I've established a couple of things here, and yes, I know for those, and then I'm going to get the email that said, why are you spending so much time on this, Stigall, if you think it's just not that big a deal? Because I know it's a big deal to some. And I want to be respectful of the fact that this is a big deal to some of you in this audience. You're concerned about it, and I don't want to sound dismissive of that either. But I want to explain where your host is coming from because I think this is something we got to deal with head on, and I think that everybody needs to be very, very eyes wide open about what's going on. I've been warning for a while now that I believe that there is a very subversive and divisive entity or entities inside our tent, whatever that means to you. Again, I can't really define it specifically. I will just say broadly, I believe that there are a lot of entities, and people say, name names. I don't need to name names because you're smart. You know who I'm talking about. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to get into personality slap fights with a bunch of people. I'm just saying, take stock of the number of people you know who are of some prominence, who have big social media accounts or big followings or big YouTube channels or whatever. Take note of them and where they were and where things stood when Kamala Harris was our pretend vice president and running against Donald Trump. And I want you to remind yourself I want everybody to just take a breath and remind ourselves where we were when that phony, stupid old man that wasn't running the country, but rather a bunch of subversives around him were ruining it and using him as the vehicle to do so, and that phony vice president who didn't have a brain cell in her head and had no business pretending to be vice president, never mind dog catcher, was pretending to be the nominee for the Democrat Party and running a campaign against him, and they raised over $1 billion and tried to kill the man on top of that. And I want you to remember where you were with that and where I was with that and where most of these people today who are on social media and on social platforms attacking, and that's the only word I can use, attacking him and attacking this administration over this Epstein thing. And I want you to ask yourself, of everything that we have gone through to get to the place where Donald Trump is the president again, everything specifically he's gone through to be president again, and in the 6 months that he's been in the job so far, all that he's accomplished, the extraordinarily tough deals and decisions that he's made, extraordinarily tough, and the opposition that he has faced, the sacred cows he has gone after that no one else has dared touch. He's done it. He has walked into the breach. He has walked into the fire time and again. He has taken literal fire time and again because he believes that much in trying to course correct and save this country. When his home was raided, I told you, those of you that know this show, that was a deal breaker for me. That act alone by our former DOJ, when they decided to raid the man's home as a former president, I said that is something that can't be allowed to stand. If we allow that to stand as a country, the country is gone. And I assume most in this audience agree with that assessment. So I just think it's important to pause today, and reflect and remember where we've been, where we just came from, all that we've been through, all that Donald Trump has been through to get to just this 6-month mark and all that's been achieved. The remarkable nature of this just 6 months. And so now it's been released or stated or whatever that the Jeffrey Epstein files or list or whatever has not come to fruition. Pam Bondi, for whatever inexplicable reason, I don't know. I don't know the woman. I don't know her heart. I don't know her capabilities. I don't know. She was Donald Trump's pick. Donald Trump continues to stand by her. Not sure why. I'm not nuts about her. I don't think she's a great communicator. I could do without her. I think the one flaw in Donald Trump's presidencies, both of them now, have been his pick for Attorney General. Sessions was a swing and a miss. Bill Barr wound up being a swing and a miss. So far, Pam Bondi appears to be a swing and a miss. And it's not even because I don't think Pam Bondi can do the job. She got out over her skis. She got out in front of something that I don't think she should have. She brought a bunch of social media influencer types to Washington, D.C. and pretended to have the goods on Epstein. And there are a lot of people in this audience. I don't know how many. I can't quantify it. And again, I don't think most of this audience is spending most of their day obsessed on this one story. But I know there are a lot of you that care about it. I know personal friends that care about it, okay? So I want to be sensitive to that. You care deeply about this. And you say, well, don't you, Stigall? Of course, anytime a child is victimized, I care. Of course I care. Like, let's not assassinate one another's character because we don't rank every issue as of paramount importance as you might. Okay? All of us have different priorities, different goals and objectives. But, to suggest you don't care about raped children because you may not prioritize this Epstein file story as the most important thing facing the country, and I don't. Let me say that. I don't. I think of all the things this country is facing collectively, I don't think Jeffrey Epstein, a dead pedophile, is the biggest one. In fact, I said yesterday on X, for me, this is not a top 10 item. There are some of you, for various reasons, whatever those may be, personal or what have you, there are some of you, this is the most important thing in your day. It's what gets you up out of bed and drives you. And you were told, or you felt you were promised, that the goods were going to be delivered and we were going to have this huge expose a la Chris Hansen and Dateline. And names would be dropped and released, and we were going to have a massive roundup because there have been people in my business who for years now have been promising you that behind a black curtain with just the right person is going to be a list of names that will be exposed to all of us, and the world will finally know that the world's most powerful people are a bunch of child pervert, pedophile predators. And we're going to get this long list of names, and we're going to frog march them all to jail, and it's all on a list, a hidden list, that's hidden at DOJ, and we just need Donald Trump to win so that Pam, or whoever, his attorney general, who wound up being Pam Bondi, is going to go in there and reveal the list. Now, Elon Musk keeps getting on social media and saying that he knows people on the list. And to that I say, Mr. Musk, if you know something, then by God, be a man and produce it. Okay? I'm getting a little tired of Elon Musk saying who's on the list and who's not on the list. If you think you know who's on the list, say it. And one of the people he suggested yesterday is on the list. A list, by the way, you are taking as an article of faith exists. I want you to know that. And I think we should all be honest about that. We have been telling ourselves, and many people in my business have been telling their audiences for a long time, that there is a list. There's a list. We're all waiting for this magic list, this Willy Wonka list. And then people say, well, Pam Bondi said. She said it's on her desk. We played what she explained was the file was on her desk. She didn't mean to confirm there was a list, but rather there was a file. A lot of you don't believe that. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. You don't believe it. You don't need to believe it. I don't need you to believe it. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. You believe there's a list. Elon says Steve Bannon's on the list. I think that's actionable by Steve Bannon, by the way. if Elon Musk thinks Steve Bannon is on a list, he better be. There'd better be one, because to say publicly that there's a guy that's out there having underage sex on an island courtesy of a dead pedophile, and that's not happening, get yourself an attorney, because Elon Musk has got some deep pockets. That seems defamatory to me. Does Elon have, Eddie, you know what I'm saying? Like, if there's a list and Elon's seen it, then by God, he should produce it. And I mean today, right now. Yes?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
So do we just keep doing this flirting thing on social media?
It's not helpful.
Is so-and-so on the list? Is maybe who's on the list? Like, are we going to keep playing this game? If you know something, then say it.
Agree.
Dan Bongino. You think all of a sudden Dan Bongino has become a member of the FBI and has become a total sellout? Is that what you think? Maybe you do. I'm not inclined to castigate Dan Bongino because I happen to know the man. I do have a bit of at least professional friendship with him. I've known him for a long time. I think he's a guy of integrity. I don't have any reason to doubt otherwise. As I said, I'm not particularly impressed with Pam Bondi. So Donald Trump gives this answer yesterday when he's asked about this, and it's flippant and he's pissed. And in turn, this pissed a lot of you off, and I heard about it. I can't believe Donald Trump answered the question about the Epstein thing that way. How dare he dismiss our concerns? And I simply said, I understand it, actually, for all the reasons I just laid out. And I'll continue to more in a second. President Trump has accomplished a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. Chief among them, and I think it's important we remind ourselves of this and we don't forget it. President Trump has kicked men out of women's sports and women's personal spaces and women's locker rooms. President Trump has kicked anti-Semites off of college campuses. He has castrated activist college campuses from he has castrated children's hospitals from butchery on children. He's protecting women and children through executive action. And some would say yesterday that because this Epstein information didn't come out to their satisfaction, I guess they're saying, and Fast Eddie here again, this is my challenge, you need to say what you mean. Just like if Elon says there's this secret list that he knows people are on, then he needs to produce it. He needs to state how he knows that. He needs to show evidence of it. I assume if there's really a list, somebody snapped a photo. Okay? Produce it. Put up or shut up. Pam, if you believe there's a list, Pam Bondi's not the only one with access to it. She's not the only one that's seen it. So put up or shut up. Now, let's also say what we mean here, folks. If you think that there's something that someone like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are sitting on that they're not allowing you to see because they're protecting someone, then you believe Trump is part of that. And are you prepared to say that? Maybe you are, and that's okay. That's where you and I will part. I'm asking Trump voters, do you believe at this hour Donald Trump is capable of sitting on a list of names of people who have had child sex? And he's protecting them for any number of various reasons. Do you believe that's true? Oh, sure, the left believes that's true, but do you? If you do, you should say it. Quit being cute and just say it. So, Donald Trump has accomplished all of these tremendous things, including protecting women and children through executive action, forced children's hospitals and colleges to take action to protect women and children. And some would say yesterday, he's hiding a list of people who are preying on children for sex or something. And there may be some of you in this audience that believe that's true. Again, I'm not trying to tell you how to feel or talk you out of anything. You're entitled to feel any way you want. And, of course, then I was accused of being a paid shill for the White House or okay with pedophilia, which is, of course, a natural distinction, delineation to draw. Way to connect those lines. You've lost the argument if that's where you're debasing the conversation. So Donald Trump answers this way yesterday, and some of you got angry about it. 2841, if you would.
Worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
Okay, and he goes on. Now, this made some people very angry. Fast Eddie, I'm told some people were very angry with Donald Trump for that answer. And let me just tell you this about that. I totally understand his anger. Because unless you believe he's part of some grand cover-up and conspiracy, which I just don't, and if you do, then fine. Again, I can't talk you out of it, and I'm not interested in really talking to you anyway. If that's what you believe, then you're gone already. That's fine. But if you're here and you're trying to sort this out, let me ask you something. Donald Trump has taken bullets, been threatened with jail, had his home raided, and accomplished an amazing amount of things in 6 months' time, including protecting women and children. There's a massive flood with 160 people missing in Texas as we speak. He's trying to broker Middle East peace. He's trying to stave off nuclear holocaust with Iran. He's trying to save the economy. He's locked down the southern border. And somebody goes, yeah, but about the Epstein list. I can imagine I'd be pissed if I'm him, Fast Eddie. I can imagine being pissed. Are you telling me of everything I've done and everything on my plate right now, that's what you want to talk about?
You're right. There's still
I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that I think the story doesn't stink to high heaven. That doesn't mean that I don't think there's more information to be told. That doesn't mean that I don't think information was hidden and destroyed. I don't know anything about it. But I think we should be very, very clear if we are, in fact, Trump supporters anyway. Now, if you're not, that's law. And the left wants to come between Trump and his support. Understand that. The subversives in our audiences, as well as on the left, want to come between you and Donald Trump. That's their goal. And if they can use this as a reason to do it, that's what they'll do. It's not going to work on me. I'll just say that. It's not going to work on me. If you want to spend your time doing that, find another show. Back again for Balance of Nature. And in the MAGA movement, one thing we all care about is what's in the container, the ingredients. You flip that thing over, and if you can't pronounce it and you don't recognize it, you put it back. I've seen my kids doing this now. They're very health conscious that way. I like that. And the next generation seems to be more so. And that's why I tell them Balance of Nature, and you can feel good about it too. Balance of Nature is just that. It's nothing more than natural fruit and vegetable plucked right from the soil. No binders, no additives, no fillers. Harvested ingredients that are freeze-dried into a fine powder, and then they use an advanced vacuum cold process to better preserve the nutritional value in that powder. You can know with confidence that you're talking about 31 ingredients that are strictly fruits and vegetables. Every single day, that's what you get in your Balance of Nature. Imagine a platter with 31 different fruits and vegetables on it. Join me. Take some Balance of Nature and get healthy. Use that discount code CHRIS. 35% off plus free shipping when you do. You got to use the discount code CHRIS, though. All right, so here it is again, the number 800-2468-751. Use the discount code CHRIS or order online, balanceofnature.com. Discount code CHRIS to get that 35% off plus free shipping. Here we are, 2025. Happy New Year. And our friends at Gulag America are back and along for the ride. You know, they have been not only great sponsors, but they have been ride or die founders at the Harump Society. I am so appreciative for our friends at Gulag America. I love the work they do. And we have every reason to be optimistic in this new year. They are, we are, all of us are. America's resurgence, it's back. Trump's back. And Gulag America wants to continue to be your premier source for topical and satirical apparel and other gear designed to help give you voice for your love of liberty and your desire to see America great again. I know we all share that in common. Gulag America does too, but that doesn't mean that the deep state's not going to be busy at work. They're not going to go gently into the good night, as they say. So Gulag America is ready. They want you battle ready. They want you geared up, and they've got hilarious stuff for you to buy, and they're going to give it to you at a deep discount to kick off the new year. You ready for this? You take 15% off All orders at gulagamerica.com when you use my promo code Chris15. So if you go shopping today and you see a shirt you like, and you will because they're hilarious, go to gulagamerica.com, type the promo code Chris15. That's Chris15. Type it in the checkout, and then you'll save big. Enjoy the new year. Enjoy new savings with that same quality, that same hilarious attitude that you've come to expect from our buddies at Gulag America, where they say, it's not our wish, it is our warning. Beautiful looking morning. And I'm glad to have you here on the Stigall Show as we look live this morning in upstate New York, I believe. What a beautiful looking shot there on the Salem News Channel, Blue Mountain, New York. That is upstate, isn't it? Sorry, I don't know my New York geography as well as I should. My apologies to you people in Blue Mountain. Yes, confirmation. Right on. It looks just pristine. I've never been, but we have one of our cameras affixed there. We have cameras everywhere. It's very Big Brother, this show. So just know, when you're on vacation or you're doing business in the city, we're watching you. And you can always reach me at chrisstigall.com for all our social media and whatnot. And one other thing you ought to know is the big, beautiful bill, now that it has passed and President Trump has secured this massive victory there, along with Congress, for your tax cuts to be codified, most of all. The most important thing about all of it, tax cuts codified into law permanently, so you and businesses, people with taxes on tips and overtime and Social Security, we now all have a more clear picture of what we owe and don't owe in the future on taxes, and that's a very good thing. But that win is now at risk. A massive health care tax hike is still looming out there in Congress, and you should know about it. The people at Americans for a Balanced Budget want you to know about it. They're sounding the alarm on this because key healthcare tax credits are set to expire at the end of this year. So the business of this is not done yet. If it happens, 24 million Americans could face skyrocketing healthcare costs. Millions lose coverage entirely if this isn't fixed. Rural communities, especially hard hit with reduced access to care. That's why Congress has to act right now to protect your tax credits for Americans who buy their own health insurance. You know that one of my sponsors and friends is John Ruhlman at U.S. Medical Plan. You buy your own health insurance out of pocket, you need to be protected, and Congress has a responsibility to protect you. President Trump's own pollsters found that 77% of voters, including over 70% of Trump supporters, are more likely to vote for candidates who preserve tax credits for health insurance purchases. That's why Americans for a Balanced Budget, happy to partner with them. They're calling on Congress to protect the full promise of the One Big Beautiful Bill by preventing a devastating health care tax hike. Now that these tax cuts have been codified into law, now let's protect your health insurance costs too. Your voice counts on this, and you can simply log on to StopHealthCostHikes.com. If you buy your own health insurance out of pocket, protect your tax advantages when you do that by going to StopHealthCostHikes.com. Tell Congress, protect tax credits, stop rising costs, and act before it's too late. The good people at Americans for a Balanced Budget are sponsors of the Chris Stigall Show. Just FYI. All right, yesterday, this from the New York Post, it was also announced that the FBI is launching a criminal investigation into John Brennan, James Comey, and the crew over the Trump-Russia collusion nonsense. Former CIA Director John Brennan, ex-FBI Director James Comey, being investigated for potential criminal conduct related to the 2016 Trump-Russia collusion probe. Now, for me, this is where the action is. Here's... one of the things that is sort of frustrating to me is I believe, and I think that Team Trump believes, there was an organized attempt on his life. I think they believe that. I can't confirm it, but I think they believe that. I think people inside the FBI believe whatever happened inside the Secret Service to allow Donald Trump to be shot at, as he was in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that's my word, allowed. I've been using that word very intentionally for a long time now. Secret Service allowed that to happen. Why? Still not clear. I have every reason to believe that Donald Trump is deeply invested in getting to the bottom of who was trying to thwart his campaign, try to link him to Vladimir Putin and Russia, who tried to kill him. Don't you think? I mean, Fast Eddie, if you're Donald Trump, don't you think those things might be, and by the way, they're not what drive him, to his credit. For me, That's why I couldn't run for president. That's why I would never be a good president. All I would do is obsessively demand that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino get to the bottom of how was I nearly killed and who were the bastards that were trying to subvert my first administration and trying to take me out politically through linking me to Russia. I would be obsessed with that every day if I were Donald Trump. He's not, to his credit. He's actually getting other work done.
No, Chris, me too. And honestly, you never see or hear that much from Melania Trump as far as like wading into controversy, wading into things, but she did wade into this, and
that's why
it's unacceptable.
You're exactly right. She's very judicious in even speaking publicly, but on this she did because she knows how significant it is, and I think most of us do. And again, I've said I'm sorry to belabor this, but I think we forget. The news cycle is such. I think we forget this man's house was raided over documents that he more than legally procured and held. And even if there was a discrepancy about it, you don't send in the FBI to kick down the front door of a former president's home and go through his wife's belongings and son's belongings and read the riot act to every staff member on his property. It's outrageous. It was outrageous. It was third world dictator banana republic outrageous. And when it happened, I said, Donald Trump has to be the president again because we have to get justice on this. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you, if at the end of this Trump term, if there aren't answers and accountability on this, I'll join some of you in saying the deep state's victorious. And I'll throw in the towel and say, well, if Donald Trump and this team can't correct this issue, then nobody's gonna. And I probably will say the country's lost. I'll throw in the towel if we come to the end of this road and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Donald Trump produce nothing in investigating the subversive actors inside official Washington who tried to, I believe, kill a former president, raid his home, impeach him, tie him to foreign actors, and do anything they could to stop him from ever becoming president again. This was a coordinated inside government illegal act. There were violations of law aplenty. There was perjury. And James Comey and John Brennan and Clapper and others, they're hip deep in scandal. I believe that's where we ought to spend a lot of time digging because our republic as we know it, again, I know there are people that are focused on what I would call ancillary issues. And I spent the first hour addressing it. I'm not going to say it again. I'm trying to resist it. I'm like McFly. Chicken? You chicken, McFly? I get twitchy now. I got to resist it, Fast Eddie, and not go back. Don't hit rewind, Stigall. You just did an hour on it. Move forward. That issue, that thing that I just spent the first hour talking about, there are people that would spend more time thinking about that than the fact that we literally nearly lost the republic entirely because there were subversives trying to take out the one guy who stood in opposition to them. That should chill you to your bone. That should scare you a lot more than some supposed list. Okay? It just should. Like if I'm ranking in order of importance, this one, the Comey Clapper thing, right at the top. We nearly lost the damn country entirely because of these bastards. Criminal referral involving Brennan passed to the FBI by current CIA Director John Ratcliffe. The investigation into the Obama-era spy chief involves allegations he made false statements to Congress, and that's currently underway. It's unclear if the FBI's probe into Brennan, one of 51 intelligence officials who falsely suggested Hunter Biden's laptop could be Russian disinformation, encompasses more than his alleged false testimony to lawmakers. Meanwhile, the specific nature of the potential criminal matter involving Comey is unclear, but an investigation has been opened there too. DOJ sources described the FBI's view of the role Comey and Brennan played during the investigation of claims that Trump's 2016 campaign was colluding with Russia. They described it as a conspiracy. The FBI, CIA, and DOJ did not immediately respond to the New York Post for comment while they reported on this. The investigation into Brennan comes a week after the CIA released a, quote, lessons learned review of the Obama administration's spy agency's assessment that Russia meddled in the 2016 presidential election to help Trump. Brennan may set himself up to face perjury charges after a new email surfaced in the scathing assessment Miranda Devine over at the New York Post reported this last week. Brennan insisted in an email that the discredited Steele dossier be included despite strong pushback from the CIA's two most senior Russian experts, who said it didn't meet even the most basic tradecraft standards. So consider this. John Brennan pushed for something to be included in official intelligence reporting about Donald Trump that even his own team said, this is not credible, boss. He said include it anyway. And let's not forget, in Trump's first term, using the FISA warrants to spy on and surveil private citizens campaigning for President of the United States, as James Comey did, the abuse of the FISA courts, which I think is one of the most heinous, objectionable things in this country we ever saw. This setting up of people, putting them in leg irons from Bannon to Peter Navarro to General Flynn, the spying, the surveilling, the framing, the assassination attempts. We were hanging like a loose tooth as a republic. Now this will get me animated. This we'd better see some action on. This is the Stigall Show. All right, also yesterday, the Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, who was a guest on this show last month, I had to go back and refresh my memory on what Brooke Rollins said to us, because I did say, and I addressed to, we had a very brief interview with her, and I said, there are people out there that say you are pro-amnesty. And she rejected that and said that she's working closely with Kristi Noem and Tom Hallman. She is not pro-amnesty, but did acknowledge that we have a lot of basically illegal labor in ag, and something's got to be done about it. Now, Trump said something at the Iowa State Fairgrounds over the weekend, and we played it for you here yesterday, that got a lot of people animated. I know my colleague Charlie Kirk got a lot of people animated, that mass amnesty was planned, that Trump had this idea that he was going to grant everyone here illegally blanket amnesty to continue to work on the farms and work in the hotel rooms. This also made a lot of you angry. And so the White House felt they needed to address this too, and here's how that unfolded yesterday in 2825.
There's been a lot of noise in the last few days and a lot of questions about where the president stands in his vision for farm labor. The first thing I'll say is the president has been unequivocal that there will be no amnesty, and I think that's very, very important. I and the rest of our cabinet certainly support that, effectuate that, and make sure that happens every single day. The second thing, to your question about mass deportations, the president and I have spoken about that once or twice, and he has always been of the mindset that at the end of the day, the promise to America to ensure that we have a 100% American workforce stands, but we must be strategic in how we are implementing the mass deportation so as not to compromise our food supply. Ultimately, the answer on this is automation, also some reform within the current governing structure. And then also, when you think about, there are 34 million able-bodied adults in our Medicaid program. There are plenty of workers in America, but we just have to make sure we're not compromising today, especially in the context of everything we're thinking about right now. So no amnesty under any circumstances. Mass deportations continue, but in a strategic and intentional way as we move our workforce toward more automation and toward a 100% American workforce.
And 2838, just so you hear it straight from the boss's mouth, 2838 yesterday in the cabinet meeting.
You had said maybe that the ISA folks won't go after those folks on farms. So which is it?
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about.
But I just, and Brooke Rollins goes into that again, kind of like what we just played a minute ago, so I'm not playing it again. But I wanted you to hear Donald Trump very specifically say there is no amnesty. Here again, Donald Trump is a problem solver, and whether you like this or whether you don't is not up to you. I'm sorry that you don't. I don't either. I don't like that we're here. I don't like that there are 20 million people and a good vast number of them are working in jobs under the table or off the books. I don't like that. I wish that weren't so, but it's so. We're here. This is the problem that we have to deal with. And rounding them up and yanking them out of farm fields and hotel rooms today is going to create a massive problem for all of us in the immediate. Trump's trying to solve that problem. Okay, so the big beautiful bill has passed, and this is a good thing because we have certainty now, most of all, in our tax code. I understand there's some spending issues and things that people differ on, but the key component to the whole thing is tax rates, overtime, tips, Social Security. We now have a better understanding of what that means in the tax code and how that will ultimately benefit you come tax time. But also key to this, and something you care about and I care about deeply, is will we start to see meaningful cuts in spending? We all understand you're not going to be able to just grow the economy out of $37 trillion of debt. You're going to have to make meaningful cuts too. Tommy Aiello is the Senior Director of Government Affairs for the National Taxpayers Union. They are watching this closely too. And in fact, there's a new piece out there, headline, "One Big Beautiful Bill, but now get to work on a serious deficit reduction program." Mr. Aiello, glad to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Rescissions. Are those enough? Do those work for you? We know they sent $9 billion of rescissions from the White House to the Congress, and the Congress signed off on it. That's a great, okay, $9 billion, yay, drop in the bucket, but it was something. Do you think these people are serious about going back to the drawing board now in this second half of the year and taking an axe to what we're spending out there?
Yeah, I hope they're serious because we're $37 trillion in debt. It's a real problem, and Congress needs to get serious about fixing it. Now, look, the One Big Beautiful Bill is a step in the right direction, right? It makes taxes certain. It means we won't be hit with a $4.5 trillion tax increase at the end of the year. And it saves about $1.3 trillion in savings. Anytime we're talking about savings that begin with the T, it should be a serious thing to consider voting for. So now that that is off the table, we're hopeful that the rescissions packages will begin to pass. It's still with the Senate right now, $9 billion in cuts. We're hopeful the administration will send more. And then it's also appropriation season. This is the time where we begin the process of funding the government over the next year. We think we should return to pre-COVID-19 spending levels, find structural reforms. So it is a holistic approach by the administration and Congress.
Tommy Aiello with the National Taxpayers Union. Can I talk briefly about, as a guy, this is your kind of wheelhouse, so you've, I'm sure, looked at it closely. People that maybe don't have a full understanding of what specifically the tax benefits are in the One Big Beautiful Bill. I wanted to spend a minute on that, if you can. Not exactly why you're here to talk to us today, but I'm just curious. Some people feel like they were led to believe this would be better or there would be more. I had it explained to me by a White House official last week that the no tax on Social Security thing, a lot of people said that was a promise that wasn't kept. And then we had a gentleman come on the show and say, well, actually, yes, it was, but it's not going to come in the form of your physical Social Security deposit every month or whatever. You're going to see it come tax time and deductions. Is that about right? Can you explain that specifically? Because there's a lot of people in the audience interested in that particular provision.
So under the budget reconciliation rules, right, this was the process that allowed Republicans to pass the bill without Democratic support, get around the filibuster. You're not allowed to change Social Security or touch Social Security during that budget process. So what they had to do is get a little creative, and that's why they created that new deduction for Social Security. Now, as it relates to the other campaign promises around no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and the other ones, and the car interest deductibility, all of those we think add complexity to the tax code. The way we approach it and our guiding principle is we want a low tax code, a low taxes, treats every taxpayer equally. And we did achieve some of that with a higher standard deduction, a locked in lower rates. But these campaign promises, they could be quite expensive. They're going to cost about $380 billion over the next 10 years if they're extended. It is very expensive. We think the better way to do it is just to give everybody a larger tax cut, not just lend out to a specific number of taxpayers.
Do you think most taxpayers, now that the One Big Beautiful Bill has passed, will most taxpayers benefit, in your view? Just asking. I don't necessarily know that that's true, but is that true?
Absolutely. I think we can expect every single taxpayer to receive a tax cut. They do that in a number of ways. One, the standard deduction is not only from TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, locked in, which doubled the standard deduction, but it also increases it to $31,500 if you're married filing jointly. If you have children, the child tax credit is increased as well, and all the lower rates from the Trump tax cuts in 2017 are locked in. So not only will most Americans get a tax cut, but the threat of a tax increase at the end of the year is totally off the table. So with that now off the table, hopefully Congress can now get to work on a second reconciliation package that will get serious about cutting spending, right? We all know there's a spending problem. Instead, we stop talking about it and we actually start investigating solutions and implementing those solutions to reduce the size of the federal deficit, which is going to be approaching $2 trillion a year.
A couple of issues have kind of converged, and again, this is not why you're here, so I don't mean to rope you into the discussion about illegal aliens and the workforce, but it is interesting to note that Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture yesterday, as they're discussing about what to do about all this migrant labor, illegals that are working on farms and whatnot, what do you do with them in the interim? How do we transition as we're trying to deport illegal aliens en masse? But then also, how do those jobs that they occupy at the moment, what do you do? AI, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But she said something in particular that I took note of. She underscored 34 million able-bodied Americans are collecting Medicaid. And that's got to be addressed. And I thought that interesting. I don't know why Congress, specifically Republicans, have such a hard time saying that. I like that Rollins said it. I think it needs to be said repeatedly. There's so many hardworking Americans paying taxes, but there are 34 million of us who could be working that aren't, and they're suckling off our tax dollars. I don't you think that's an easy way for members of Congress, on the Republican side anyway, to make the case for cuts?
100%. I mean, the fact that we have overall Medicaid is approaching 80 million people. That's about 20% of the country on government health care. And that's just Medicaid. It doesn't even touch on Medicare, right? So look, the one big beautiful bill, it sort of addresses that problem. It imposes Medicaid work requirements into law. So it says if you are an able-bodied adult, you need to either go to work, school, volunteer, or a training program for 20 hours a week. It's about 80 hours a month. That is a relatively easy, fair, and reasonable ask for somebody if you are collecting a government benefit. And of course, the Democrats are going to hit us over the head for the next 16 months through Election Day that, we are cutting Medicaid and taking away health care from people. But, the way the Republicans framed it is, if you are an eligible individual, meaning you are over the age of 64, or you have children, or you have a disability, you are not. You don't have to abide by the work requirements. So there's these carve-outs for individual populations, and which is a good thing because we don't want to kick granny out of the nursing home or take food out of children's mouths if they have dependents. So, if you are 30 years old and you're a male and you're not working and you're collecting government benefits, it's time you start contributing to the workforce and to our society if you want that benefit.
I'm borderline inclined to say that if you're a 30-year-old man and you're collecting Medicaid, you should really be ashamed of yourself. Actually, I'm kind of there, but anyway, that's another story. Tommy Aiello is with us, Senior Director of Government Affairs for National Taxpayers Union. Again, this is a little off topic, but an adjacent topic, and that's Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Tim Kaine of Virginia, proposing a new method to account for the expected lapse in Social Security's trust fund. They say trust fund investments should be diversified. We propose creating an additional investment fund in parallel to the trust fund, not replacing it, that would be invested in stocks, bonds, and other investments that generate a high rate of return. The two estimate it would take $1.5 trillion upfront investment into the fund to get it going, while suggesting the Treasury fund the account for 75 years and then it's self-sufficient. You say, do that? That sounds like sort of what Republicans have said in the past, and they're accused of being, again, undermining granny or whatever.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of the proposal, but I'm just really happy that we're finally talking about addressing Social Security. It is the elephant in the room that Congress doesn't want to talk about. The fund is going to be insolvent in the next 6 years. That is a real problem for the tens of millions of people that rely on Social Security. Why is that a problem? Because if Congress does nothing, which they love to do, there'll be a 25% cut to benefits across the board. That is a real problem. So we need to create certainty to not only people on Social Security, but to all taxpayers that Congress is going to come up with a solution to fix it. I don't know if that is the appropriate way to address it, but overall, there is a real problem with the trust funds across Congress, whether it's the Highway Trust Fund, which is how we get our roads and bridges and highways paved, running about a $200 billion deficit over 5 years. That's also going to be insolvent in the next few years.
Tommy, it's hardly a trust fund if you spend it all. If Congress is blowing through the trust fund, it's not a fund at all. Tommy Aiello, National Taxpayers Union. Thank you, my friend. Got to take a break here on the Stigall Show. Kristi Noem making it official yesterday, coming soon to an airport near you. You don't have to take off your shoes. 2828. Here you go.
We have some very exciting news to announce that today we have started a new no shoes policy with the Department, the Transportation Security Administration. TSA will no longer require travelers to remove their shoes when they go through our security checkpoints. This is something that I know for quite some time people have talked about and discussed, and we know that when President Trump was elected that he pledged to make life better for all Americans, and that includes those who are travelers going through our busy airports.
Harumphin, hallelujah. That is some of the best news of the day yesterday, as far as I'm concerned. Well, there's that, and then there's this. I was torn what my favorite story of the day was yesterday. Was it the no-shoes, or was it the Supreme Court coming down on the side of Trump in a big way? Not a small way, not your 6'3". It was only Justice What is a Woman to abstain and disagree. And she was so stupid. Particularly stupid. She's just a glittering jewel of ignorance, this woman. Justice What is a Woman? I mean, uniquely dumb. She's the Mazie Hirono of the Supreme Court. She is the Karine Jean-Pierre of the Supreme Court. Just stone cold stupid. And it's so bad. Sonia Sotomayor, the wise Latina, had to tell her, lady, you don't really know what we're addressing here. What you're bringing up isn't even really germane. The Supreme Court Tuesday clearing the way for the Trump administration to fire federal employees. Imagine that. The chief executive of the United States government has the right to fire people in the executive branch offices. Shazam! And for once, it wasn't close. The justices noted in the unsigned opinion they were not ruling on the legality of any specific layoff plans, just that the government is likely to succeed on its arguments that the executive order and memorandum are lawful. Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan joined the other justices in the majority ruling. The plans themselves are not before this court at this stage, and we thus have no occasion to consider whether they can and will be carried out consistent with the constraints of the law. I joined the court's stay because it leaves the district court free to consider those questions. So again, they're taking the totality of the argument and just the face of the argument. You're not getting into specifics. Again, we're talking about the basic premise. Does the executive branch have the ability to fire executive branch office workers? And broadly speaking, the Supreme Court said, well, yeah, that's kind of the job of the executive. Even the two of the liberal ladies. But not Justice What is a Woman. Justice What is a Woman dissented from the opinion, calling it the, quote, wrong decision at the wrong moment, especially given what little this court knows about what is actually happening on the ground. And, of course, that's when the wise Latina stepped in and goes, that's not what we're deciding. We're very specifically saying lower courts can proceed, people in lower courts can object, people in lower courts and lower court judges can hear these cases and decide whether individual cases are legal, but we're deciding broadly right now, is it constitutional for the president to fire members of the executive branch? That's what we're deciding, and the 8 of us say, of course, the people elect a president. The president's going to have the authority to hire and fire inside his own executive branch. Justice What is a Woman goes, yeah, but we don't know the individual circumstances. And even the wise Latina had to say, that's not what we're talking about. You might want to just quit talking so much. Justice, what is a woman's a little sensitive about this? 2827.
It's funny to me how people focus on how much I talk at oral argument. And I was always this person on the bench. And so it's been a bit of an adjustment because as a trial court judge, you have your own courtroom. So you can go on as long as you want. And so trying to make sure that my colleagues get to ask some questions has been a challenge for me. But I've enjoyed it. I really have.
They haven't. No wonder Ketanji speaks so much. She can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we...
Yeah, and the I don't understand montage, which we've played here on the show before, little Jesse Waters there on Fox. I don't know. You just heard her speaking there at that little symposium on Monday. Does that woman sound like she has the gravity or the brain to be a Supreme Court justice? Sincere question. I wouldn't follow her on TikTok. This is the Stigall Show. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, Chris, I can't begin to express how proud I am, obviously, of having my daughter there. Also, Dr. Geddes is just a wonderful addition to our practice. He is a classmate of my daughter Alexa's at Temple Dental School, and I have known Jared for about 7 years now. Getting to know Jared over the years, it was my wife Debbie and my daughter Emily who kept telling me, you have to hire Jared. You have to hire Jared. He's going to be a superstar. Jared went off to USC, did a 1-year residency after his year at Temple, and he came back and he worked for about a year in practice in New Jersey. And after, again, my wife and daughter beating my brains in, I got the message and I hired Jared, and he's been a great addition to Williamsburg Dental.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Hey there, it's Chris from my good friends at Texas Bullion Exchange, the good people that tell you there is no reason to live with all of this angst and anxiety about the markets going up and the markets going down. Why don't you just do something that has helped people calm their nerves in volatile markets for years? Texas Bullion Exchange, real physical gold as part of your savings. That's what they do. It's not about getting rich quick, mind you. It's about helping protect what you've already earned. And if you join Texas Bullion Exchange's Principal Protection Program, you're going to get 3% bonus in silver on your entire gold portfolio. Now, this program protects the value of what you've earned. So when you put it into gold and then it's time to sell, you get back what you paid. Never less. In fact, usually it's more, but it's never less. And isn't that reassuring? This program protects the value of your gold. Take the pressure off. You and your loved ones can face the future with confidence when you put gold in your savings and claim your 3% in bonus silver when you do it. 855-839-2728 is their number. 855-837-2728. Or visit buytexasgold.com. Again, 855-839-2728 or buytexasgold.com. It's Texas Bullion Exchange. Experience, integrity, and value. Glad to have you along this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you into the Wednesday edition of the Stigall Show. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. If you are watching us on the Salem News Channel, if you're listening on our hundreds of great affiliates all over the country, streaming us online, glad to have you here. And as always, if you catch the podcast later, that's great too. You can find all that at chrisstigall.com as well as social media. You can reach out to me that way if you'd like. And basically, just about everything related to the show. Anything you need, including my 3 times a week newsletter. I've got a new edition of that coming out today, the Harump Society. Check that at chrisstigall.com. We head down to Texas. Ammon Blair is with us, senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We were just taking a look at Houston there on our cameras. Mr. Blair, good morning, first of all. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I've been saying, as everyone has across the country this week, that it's hard to not have a very, very heavy heart, and it seems like every passing day the news, I'm sorry to say, just gets a little worse. Governor Abbott yesterday there in Texas saying that there's something like 160 to 170 people still unaccounted for in this tragedy. Could you just sort of bring us up to speed on what's going on the ground there?
Yes, sir. I have many friends right now, there right now, especially Chambers, former Green Beret. He's leading a team out there on recovery efforts. And unfortunately, because the complete destruction, there are people that are still buried, still missing. As you can see right now, it's very difficult to get in there. There are many volunteers. If you go to the website by the Cajun Navy, they actually have a place where your listeners across nationwide can actually donate straight to the victims, as they're in need of many supplies, and they have an actual Amazon list. This will make sure that your supplies actually go straight to the victims, and not to any state agency or NGO.
Yeah, and Mr. Blair, that website specifically, because I know people would like to help. Where is that found? I apologize. I want to make sure we get that, and I'll share it some more here on the show today.
Yes, sir. It's if you follow the Cajun Navy, the U.S. Cajun Navy on their Twitter, they posted up their Amazon link for everyone to go directly to that account.
Okay, they're called the Cajun Navy on X. We'll look that up. We'll get that up on our show notes as well as here on the show, so people can see it and donate. Thank you for calling attention to that. Chris Cuomo is an interesting guy. He had this to say on his show 2830, and was rather angry at, I guess, his party. I'm not really sure what he calls his party anymore or what his politics are, but here's what he had to say, and I think it does speak for a lot of us. Take a listen.
Why did the flooding in Texas immediately become a blame game on social media? What happened to just mourning the dead in a natural disaster? Spreading awareness of what is needed by the communities and how you can help? Just pulling for the rescue of the missing? Can't anything escape the prism of partisan advantage? Forget about me saying we're going to expose the game, see the game. Forget about the game. Feel the shame. This is disgusting. I don't even know if we're a country anymore. What brings us together? What is our common concern? We're just dueling factions of fanatics. There's no more of this. We're not a fist. We're just fickle fingers looking for triggers to pull, literally and figuratively. You got 109 or whatever the number is right now, dead in Texas. The number's going to go up. 160 missing. How is this not just a point of empathy and sympathy? Children's dead bodies being recovered all day Saturday. And then this Houston pediatrician writes, may all visitors, children, non-MAGA voters, and pets be safe and dry. Are you effing kidding me? They deny climate change? I mean, since when is death not more important than your politics? Even if you think.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, you get the flavor of it, and I could get political myself and answer the rhetorical questions Mr. Cuomo is asking, but I know there are members of the media down there, Mr. Blair, who were talking to the sheriff in the particular county where this tragedy unfolded. There does seem to be a lot of scrutiny about the way the emergency was broadcast or not broadcast. And most officials are saying, look, let's recover everyone first and then have that discussion. Is that a fair discussion to be having? Set aside the stupid, Democrat, Republican, partisan stuff. But do you think down there in Texas and because you're with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, I'm just curious, do you think that's a discussion that we ought to be having?
Simultaneously, yes. We do need a lot of people down there to help. And so I would invite Chris Cuomo and anyone in his News Nation organization to come down and actually work with their hands and help. At the same time, just like in Hurricane Harvey, look, I mentioned the Cajun Navy. When I was there for the military, I was the military liaison there in Beaumont. And the government was so slow to react that it was citizens that actually got there before we could because of bureaucracy and red tape. And we would go house to house trying to see if everyone was okay. And they just came out and would say, the Cajun Navy already showed up. And so the same thing here. You had private citizens, you had Texans serving Texans, you had the Cajun Navy all the way from Louisiana that were there even before a lot of our state, our National Guard, and you name it.
Interesting. So you're again. I want to be clear that I understand this. You do not feel, at least it's not your view or your hearing, that the response to this has been speedy enough. And what about the warning headed into the event? What's because I heard a very contentious press conference yesterday with some local media there in Texas, who was really trying to drill down with county officials there about the warning system. Is that also up for debate and grabs as a discussion?
Yeah, no, 100%. That needs to be completely investigated on why there was no warning to the people there in the campsites. So at the same time as we're going, just like Chris Cuomo asked us to go out there and to work, this is the exact same time. We can't just bury this investigation. There are dead people, and we need to know why. We need to know if the government failed to act. We need to know if the local government, all the way to the state, failed to act. So at the same time as us helping these people that are currently existing, this is not politics. This is just an investigation of exactly what happened. And so to try to claim that this is a political fervor or anything in that manner, that's a way to try to disguise or to hide the fact of complete failure.
Ammon Blair is with us, senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. This area in particular, as I understand it, back in 1987, a very, very similar event happened. So it's not unprecedented. It has happened before, which again raises that question, when you know heavy rain is coming and there's precedent for this in most of our lifetimes, it is a little confounding that people wouldn't be a little more aware to warn others of it. You know, I mean, again, I don't know anything. I don't live there, so I don't want to assume anything. But if it's true that this has happened previously, it seems like there would be more mindfulness about it happening again, if that makes sense. But I don't know if I'm correct in that assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that happens nationwide. Look, there are many people that still live in the tornado belt. There are many people that live in the hurricane zones, and they get hurricanes almost constantly, whether that's in the coast in Texas or Florida. And so a lot of times you'll have people that remain in that area even though there are warnings. And so we got to look at, I guess, all aspects of this. But I do know that the people in that area were not warned of the exact threats that were coming, especially the river rising at such a high rate and such at a speedy rate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand, Mr. Blair, and I appreciate your time today. I wasn't implying victims at fault here or victim blaming or shaming in any way. I just meant from an emergency management standpoint. Mm-hmm. I should think people would understand, when we get heavy rains, this has happened before, here's what could happen again, and there would be a plan in place to warn people, I think is what I mean. Not that no one should live anywhere near the Guadalupe River, but just that, when heavy rains like this come suddenly, it seems like there should have been a on-paper plan, and right now it doesn't seem like maybe there was. But, again, you second-guess in these times, and 160 people are missing. It's unfathomable. So, again, Mr. Blair, the best way people can help right now, if people are interested in helping, if they can't physically be there, how do you advise this audience to be helpful best?
Sure. Advise that they donate straight to the people themselves. And I just looked it up. It's the United Cajun Navy on Twitter, and they have the link on there. So nationwide, if you go to United Cajun Navy on Twitter or X, and then donate from there. Texans right now are assisting. We have the Florida SERT coming out and helping us as well. So in terms of help, really just the donations is going to be the greatest way you guys can help.
The United Cajun Navy. We'll continue to research that. Ammon Blair, senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. We are thinking and praying about you all in Texas each day. God bless you all. Thank you for your time, sir, as we take a break here on the Stigall Show. I'm just looking at this story. This guy Gunn, so you got this big blockbuster film coming out here in just a couple of days, the new Superman, right? Coming out any day now, and you're banking on this thing to be a huge blockbuster success. You wanted everybody to go, and then you pop off on the red carpet about Superman being an immigrant. And I can only imagine that the powers that be said, dude, this was supposed to be about as easy a big box office blockbuster rollout as they get. We have an iconic character. You've just remade this character in a beautiful new film using all the latest expensive technology. We've spent a boatload on it. It is a surefire moneymaker. All you had to do was go out there and say, thumbs up Superman. Stick to the script and just let it roll. But no, they can't help themselves. We played it for you yesterday. They had to get embroiled in discussions of policy and politics and talk about immigration policy. And as such, the backlash became great, rightly so, and the studios and the people behind the film realized, here's what we can't do. And this is the power of the Trump era. This is the power of you and your voice. This is the power of an American public that is tired of being lectured to and told they're bad people if they don't share the left's point of view. We're sick and tired of being told we're bad people just simply because we don't agree with the American left. And they do not get to hold the moral high ground. Okay? It's like, I have it here now. I love this yesterday. Jake Tapper talking about Epstein. All right, give me 2826. Here you go.
So what's really going on here? I mean, what's really going on? Well, experts such as our friend Julie Brown from the Miami Herald, who's been covering Epstein for years, say that the notion of Epstein having an easy-to-access client list is likely a red herring. And that's what the Trump administration is relying on, that there likely isn't a list per se. But they are also now relying on the fact that because it's MAGA influencers who often put forward so many falsehoods, legacy news media won't push the point, that while there might not be a list, there are certainly files that can be released. There's a trove of information that the Trump administration is right now refusing to share.
Okay.
Information that could...
So Jake Tapper now is deeply, deeply invested in the government releasing everything it has, as if he has any standing. The man literally wrote a book on how we missed Joe Biden being elderly and infirm and unable to do his job. He wrote a book about it, self-flagellating, claiming he didn't know what we all obviously saw. They have no moral standing here. And so, this director, whoever the hell he is, comes out and says, this is about Superman's an immigrant. Like, nobody buys this crap anymore. And if you push us, we'll push back and say, you know what? We don't have to go watch your stupid little movie. We just don't have to. We're not gonna. Bud Light, same deal. They learned. We don't have to drink your stupid beer. If you're going to make some dude in a dress your new spokesperson, turns us off. We don't like it. And we're not buying your beer. Oops, all of a sudden, that executive who made that hotshot decision and mouthed off and attacked people for not supporting it was dispatched with quickly. Budweiser changed its tune, and now they're trying to market to dudes again. You do have power. This country and the majority of people in this country who still value man-woman relationships, that biology matters, the designation of gender, the biological designation of gender matters, borders matter. We get a say. We are the United States of America, and we get a say too, not just the American left, and they're finding it out. We're consumers too. And when we unite and say, we're not going to consume your crap if you're going to attack us because we don't agree with you, it's working. The point is, it's working. And it scared them. And so now he's out there saying, actually, hey, look, we're just about kindness. I don't really want to go any further into it. I'm sorry. We're just about everyone being kind. Can't we all just be kind? I'm just about being kind. How's that? Yeah. You people can't resist lecturing the American public. You've got a surefire thing that everyone can unite around. Just like you had a surefire thing everyone could unite around in football, film. There's certain things that shouldn't be that objectionable. A flood down in Texas. But yet you can't stop trying to politicize everything, and the American public has finally said enough. That's the Trump era. That's one of the great things, the legacy Trump has left, that we're so grateful for. There is no moral high ground for the American left to take. And I want everybody to be very, very clear about something, and it's starting to really frost me that there are some, I fear, on our side, and I spent a little time earlier talking about this, and I would like to, as calmly as I can without losing my temper, because the temptation is high to lose my temper. There is an AstroTurf campaign going on the left right now, and you need to be highly aware of it and sensitive to it. And I want you to just, if you don't have to agree with a word I say, all right? You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to share my point of view. I'm not asking you to change your opinion. I'm not asking you to feel any way at all. I have an operating principle on my show, and that is I am not in the business of telling you how to feel about anything. I'm not arrogant enough to believe that I do. And I'm not attempting to try to persuade you. I don't view myself as an influencer. My living is not dependent on whether you download and share my point of view. I have been doing this now for 25 years, and I've been doing it as honestly and transparently as I can. The only thing that I have is a relationship with you and my integrity to keep myself honest and tell you when I get it wrong. I try to correct the record. But to tell you as honestly as I can what I think. You can take it or leave it. If you don't share my opinion, I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. I'm not angry at you. But I don't like people in this business and this space that are now known as influencers who I believe, for whatever reasons that I can't understand, maybe they're financial, maybe they're subversive just to be subversive, maybe they're genuinely evil people because I believe evil is real and dark. But there is a genuine subversive movement that has been afoot for a while, and we saw it rear its head during the Iranian strikes, Trump's strikes on the nuclear facilities in Iran, and we've seen it at other times, but particularly recently, we've seen it with that, and now we're seeing it with this Epstein business. And you need to understand that the American left and Jake Tapper and people like him who are now demanding, what don't we know about the Epstein files? What more is there to know? What are they hiding? That is a suggestion that Donald Trump is hiding something. And what you have to be comfortable with is that you are suggesting that the guy you just voted to elect, who's done all that he's done, and I lay out today in the Harum Society all that he's done in 6 months' time, and all that he's gone through to get to this point, is now committed to somehow hiding information about one pervert who's dead. It's to me, that doesn't make any sense and isn't logical. You may see that differently, and that's okay. But understand that the people that want you exercised and incensed about it and stirring you up, I know AstroTurf. I've been doing this a long time. There's an AstroTurf campaign afoot right now, the likes of which I haven't seen in a while. It's healthy. I see it on X. I am on blast right now from people on the left, claiming to be people on the right, in full tilt, all-consuming rage over Epstein. And I want you to know that I know you're seeing that. I see it. I'm calling it out. It is not real. And here's what I also know. When I have said I stand with Trump, this is not on my top 10 list of concerns. I think it's hinky. I think it's grotesque. I think it's odious. I think it's heinous. I think there are victims that demand justice and should get justice. All of those things are true. I don't like the way Pam Bondi handled it. I don't know all there is to know about it. It is not going to drive a wedge between me and this president and his agenda to make America great again. I will not go that far. If you choose to go that far, that's okay, but you need to be sure that you understand that that's what you're doing, and you need to say it, and you need to own it. Not half measures. If you really want to break with President Trump over this because Jake Tapper demands we know more, I want to remind you that the people on the left in particular who are now saying Jeffrey Epstein needs to be brought to justice and all of his victims need justice, these people on the left are people that would take minor children and butcher them in the name of gender-affirming care. These are people that are pro-infanticide. They would literally abort a child, make it comfortable on the delivery room table, and kill it, said Ralph Northam, the former governor of Virginia. These are people that want grown men to compete against our girls and change and get naked in front of our girls in their locker rooms and in their professional sports. And now these people dare rise up and say, you should be very angry with Donald Trump for not getting to the bottom of the Epstein thing because of the victims. Spare me. These people on the American left have done more to victimize innocent women and children in the modern era than maybe at any other time in history. The left is about death and human sacrifice, quite literally. They are a death cult, the American left. So the notion that Jake Tapper and people on the left have great concern now about getting to the bottom of the Epstein files, this is a smart audience, and I value you and I respect you enough to say, you don't have to agree with me. You can have your head on fire about the Epstein story all you want. You can talk till you're blue in the face and dig on this thing till you're blue in the face. If you think that this is the most paramount important issue facing the country, then by all means go ahead. I don't share that point of view, but I'm not mad at you if you do. But I want you to understand that there is a cottage industry in this country of people who think, we got it. Now we found it. We found the Wedge issue. Aha! Now we finally got the issue to come between the people who have elected this guy and his agenda and supported his agenda. Now we can drive that wedge and we can stop him. And I'm sorry to say that I do believe there are a lot of people that are masking as supporters of this president or masked themselves as supporters of this president who today are financially benefiting or in some other way benefiting from stirring you up and trying to drive that wedge. And again, if you sincerely feel this way, if you sincerely feel Donald Trump is the member of a cover-up after nearly being assassinated and the lawfare that's been directed at him and all that he's accomplished despite the lawfare that's been directed at him and the activist judges that have tried to stop him, his home raided, and being accused of Russian collusion, if you believe he's weathered all of that to cover up a dead pedophile, all right. That's your prerogative. You're entitled to feel that way. But you should also be aware that there is a huge contingent of people on social media and the digital world that are trying to stir you up about it, keep you animated about it, so that you will back away from Donald Trump and his MAGA agenda. And as I said earlier in the show, it's not going to work on me, and I'm not going to listen to Jake Tapper talk about what we need to know. Jake Tapper wasn't interested in telling you what we needed to know when we had a doddering old fool for a president wandering around who could barely suck pudding through a straw, never mind speak or lead. He wasn't interested. Then he writes a tell-all book to sell to you about what a shameful, disgraceful display that was by the media. Gosh, we got to do better. And now he gets to act like he's Edward R. Murrow? No. And again, he's of the left, the death cult, the child sacrifice cult that is the American left. I'm not going to listen to, I care about the victims of Epstein from these people, okay? That's all. Other news headlines. The Democrats are now so committed, by the way, to being anti-Trump, they're encouraging folks to get shot. Now, you know, and Cuomo addressed this too, speaking of not being on the moral high ground. Chris Cuomo reminds the American left, you're on no moral high ground when you're out there shooting at law enforcement officials and ICE officers. Take a listen to this, 2829.
Listen, I got to tell you, if you want to have the fight, I'll have the fight, okay? If you want to try to tell me that you believe that you somehow represent something more pure when, if you're on the left, you just had 10 young people try to kill ICE officers because their policies suck, because the way they're doing it is wrong, and this is something you want to get behind? And say, yeah, well, but? What but? What are you, nuts? If you want to have a fight, I'm here for it. Okay? Because these fringe people on either side, you want somebody to take you on, I'm here for it.
Okay.
Because you're killing it.
Yeah. From Axios, Democrats told to get shot for the anti-Trump resistance. These are the people trying to stir up acrimony amongst Trump and people that vote Trump. At town halls in their districts and in one-on-one meetings with constituents and activists, Democrat members of Congress are facing a growing thrum of demands to break the rules, fight dirty, and not be afraid to get hurt. House Democrats told Axios they're seeing a growing anger among their base that has, in some cases, morphed into a disregard for American institutions, political traditions, and even rule of law. For months, Democrat lawmakers have fumed that their base's demands to fight harder misunderstand the lack of legislative and investigative power afforded the minority in Congress. We got to get people we have people who are desperately wanting us to do something. Our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. A fourth House Democrat said constituents have told him civility isn't working, prepare for violence to fight for our democracy. A fifth House Democrat said people online have sent me crazy excrement, told me to storm the White House, get shot if necessary. Protesters charged with assaulting officers, destruction of ICE offices in Portland. California rejecting Trump administration's demand to bar biological boys from girls' sports. A federal judge is trying to pause funding of Planned Parenthood. The left has no moral standing. Today is the shortest day in recorded history. That's what they say. Yesterday was like the longest day of sunlight for everyone or some such thing. It was, no, not the longest day, but 99% of the Earth's surface saw sunlight yesterday or some such thing. Today will be the shortest day in recorded history. From the New York Post, blame it on the moon. Scientists say we're in a very unusual time. You can say that again. I don't know if you're into astrology, but maybe that's it, Ed. Maybe that's what's in the air. You think it's the moon?
You know what sucks, though? Like that being long yesterday, that's horrible when you have to put a kid down to sleep, man. Right?
Oh, buddy.
It's just like, it's still light out.
There's no off switch. Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's 9. Come on.
Where does the time go for once we know for sure, sort of? July 9th feels even shorter than your average day, filled with too much to do, but there's a scientific phenomenon that's to blame. This summer, Earth is suddenly spinning faster as a result of the moon's position. The celestial speed-up will knock anywhere from 1.3 to 1.6 milliseconds off the typical 24 hours today, resulting in the shortest day in recorded history, Ed. This will be the shortest day in recorded history.
All right, good. So maybe the kid will go to sleep at 7:30 tonight. That'd be helpful. I like this shortest day thing. That works.
Our planet's rotation process is a sensitive business, it turns out. Phenomena ranging from seasonal changes to natural disasters can have a surprising impact on speed. The latest disturbance in the force will be the 6th of its kind since 2020. That sounds about right. I might have to start getting into astrology. I'm not one for that kind of hokum generally, but I might now start having to believe it a little bit because I got to tell you what I've been waiting through the last couple of days with the lunatics on social media. I believe it. There's something in the air. I'll hear it. It's the moon. That's fine. I'll hear it.
Some fun with the astrology thing. I mean, what can it hurt, right? It's something a little lighter.
For those of you keeping track of these sorts of things, July 22nd and August 5th are expected to be similarly short. The organization called the International Earth Rotation and Reference Systems Service, they're responsible for eventually handling the negative leap second that will result from the string of abbreviated days. It will result in the first adjustment to the clock of its kind. So all of time and space for the first in recorded time and space will have to be adjusted. That's some Scott Bakula stuff right there. And our next leap will be the leap home. For you Gen Xers, you remember the show. Interesting quick story before we get out of here, and I meant to touch on it yesterday. The IRS has now said churches can endorse candidates from the pulpit. This is an interesting development. In a court filing, the tax agency, the IRS, said a decades-old ban on campaigning by tax-exempt groups should not apply to houses of worship. The IRS said on Monday that churches and other houses of worship can endorse political candidates to their congregations, carving out an exemption and a decades-old ban on political activity by tax-exempt nonprofits. The IRS made the statement in a court filing intended to settle a lawsuit by 2 Texas churches and an association of Christian broadcasters. The plaintiffs sued the IRS, previously asked the federal court in Texas to create a broader exemption to rule that all nonprofits, religious and secular, were free to endorse candidates to their members. That would have erased a bedrock idea of American nonprofit law that tax-exempt groups cannot be used as tools for any campaign, says the New York Times. Listen. I'm going to say something that might surprise you, but what the hell? I'm on a roll this week. I don't want my church endorsing candidates. I want my church to speak the truth. I want my church to speak the Word of God. I want the Word of God taught. I want the Word of God understood. And then I'd like for my church leadership to ask me to apply that to my everyday life, including the way I vote, and then leave that to me. See you tomorrow. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.